Matt McFarland from CNN is probably a lazy joke. CNN is probably a lazy joke. Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm Brian. Welcome to my Tesla weekend. So there's been, I don't know if you know this, a little bit of FUD going on since yesterday. A little bit of TESLAQ running wild because they didn't watch it. And I don't blame them. It was over 3 hours long. It was incredibly dense. It is not the sort of thing that is easy to digest. And I know because I really tried. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to understand all this AI dojo bot stuff. And I'd say I have a very good understanding, maybe 2 to 3%, which is, not like these guys who are, terrible. So real quick, before we get into that, final estimates for Q3, I have just bumped up Berlin and Texas ever so slightly because of late-breaking news that suggests that production may be higher than I expected. So, with that said, 361, 383. I'm not sure how that compares to the other guys, but I don't really follow what they do as much because my numbers are my numbers. And yeah, my numbers are my numbers. I'm seeing a little flickering, by the way. Do you see it? Am I flickering, or is that just on this one panel? Okay. All right. So, Matt Walsh, Tesla robot, slowly walks on stage at AI Day. Now, remember, this was a 3.5-hour presentation, and the article is this long. That's it. That's the whole thing. And it's so cynical. I feel like Matt was assigned the job of, make an article. Matt, I'm gonna need you. You're the guy, right? You're the expert. I need you to make an article. And he's like, the thing is scheduled for 6 hours. I'm not staying up that late. I'm on the East Coast. I need to go to bed. I'll just write it. I'll go 10 minutes in so I can see the bot and grab a screen capture, and I'll just go to bed. Must claim that if the robot was produced in mass volumes, it would probably cost less than 20 grand. Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? Tesla maintains that Optimus' advantage over competitors will be its ability to navigate independently using technology from FSD, as well as the cost savings from what it's learned about manufacturing in its automotive division. But by the way, FSD requires a human that is alert and attentive, ready to take over at any time, and is not yet capable of fully self-driving. Matt, my friend. First of all, if you're watching this, you're terrible. Do you think Optimus is going to be going 75 miles an hour? Because if you do, I think it should have a human ready to take over at a moment's notice. The demo I saw looked a little slower than that, Matt. Tesla has a history of aggressive price targets that it doesn't ultimately reach. That's mostly true. The Tesla Model 3 was long promised as a $35,000 vehicle, but only briefly came out for that price and only off-menu. Cybertruck is also going to be more than the $39,990, and Tesla is $46,990. By the way, that $46,990, that's in the US. It costs different prices in different markets. In China, it's still about $40,000 for a car that's much nicer than the one that was $35,000. It has more range, it has more features, it's a better car. And I don't know if you know this, but inflation. Matt, did you know about inflation? You're CNN business, so you should probably know about that. But before it even started, what Tesla's AI Day is tonight, it may wow you or end with a gaffe. Setting expectations low. I appreciate that. Maddie McFarfar. It'll hold its second one. It's going to be showing off, talking about FSD and Dojo. Dojo's a supercomputer, blah, blah, blah. Okay. He has said that AI Day may play a role in computers matching general human abilities, a huge milestone many experts say is decades away. Right. Until something is real, it isn't. Everything's impossible until it isn't. More limited, easier to develop, all that. Inflation, John says, inflation is driving up Ford's prices too. And Andrej Karpathy exited the company. Guys, we know why he left. He just wants to focus on raising his twins with Elon. Pretty sure that's right. It's not easy to predict what may or may not show up at the event. like the unbreakable windows that promptly broke. Buddy, your bias is clear, and I get it. I get it. It's cynicism sells in QDom, in TESLAQ. But the problem is this feeds into the dummy heads, trying to keep it PG, over on Reddit. Now, Reddit famously is a site where people look at headlines and form fully fledged out opinions without reading the article. This article's very short. Most of them didn't read it. And they sure as heck did not watch the 3.5-hour presentation, because if you despise Tesla, the last thing you're going to do is dedicate 3.5 hours to trying to wrap your head around something as dense and deep as Dojo. I get that. But these people have fully formed opinions. Matt's a cynic. He knows better. But the clowns on Reddit? My God. So let's talk about some of those complaints. Well, it can barely walk. You know, that's what Matt himself said. It walks on stage slowly. Yeah, it can barely walk. Right. They built it in 6 months. Well, a high school robotics team can build a walking robot. Yeah, not like this, though. It's different. It's different, and you know it's different, because if you watch the presentation, which these people clearly did not, they would see that it wasn't taught how to walk, it taught itself how to walk. It picked what gait was the correct length of step, the most efficient use of swinging arms and hips. It's doing it itself. It can barely walk. But Boston Dynamics is better. It's better. It's a better company. Look at it. It can do parkour, which is, you know, something I need my robot to do. I don't need a robot that can do parkour. And I should hope Boston Dynamics is ahead. They were founded in 1992. A lot of the engineers we saw on stage yesterday were not alive in 1992. If it takes you 30 years and your claim is we're better than somebody who started 6 months ago, I would argue you're not doing a very good job. Now, this is all very impressive, but it's highly edited. Now, I'd say the demo we saw of the bot walking, great. And then they showed some clips. Oh, those were heavily edited. So was this. Very much so. Well, you know, what about Asimo? You know, Asimo, this is from 20 years ago. What can TESLABot do that this one can't? Well, for starters, this can't grab something from a shelf at eye level because it's about 4.5 feet tall. Well, building a robot that's a foot taller, very easy. Is it? Because if it was, they would have done it. Instead, they built this because it's easier. Scored a goal. Now, I'm not criticizing Honda, and I'm not criticizing Asimov. They nailed the easy part. Mobility. That is a solved problem. Catching up to what these can do physically, it's settled science. You could poach a couple engineers and have it done in a year or two. No problem. The critical difference, and that's the question, is, well, what is the difference? If you watched AI Day 2, you would know the difference. The difference is everything that Tesla brings to the table. The difference is, since the bot's solved, we know how to make motors and actuators and all that. The difference is the AI. And that's why Tesla is still recruiting. Tesla's core competencies are the difference. They have the best battery technology. You can argue that, but it would be an argument. And they almost certainly have the best technology in batteries. They have the best chips and logic. Even if you think it's not ready, I would agree, but it is the best. They bring auto manufacturing competencies to the idea of a robot. They crash test robots in simulations. I'm going to tell you right now, Honda, Boston Dynamics, they didn't have crash testing simulations. They would just wait for them to fall over and go, darn it, the fan broke. Gotta beef that up a little. They're crash testing robots. Which motors and actuators should we use? Well, let's run them all through a massive simulation and figure out which 6 we can use to simplify things for production. That's not something these guys are doing because Asimo was never meant to be a production robot, I am confident. At least I hope not, because what a failure that would have been. Boston Dynamics, 30 years, you still can't buy one of their humanoid robots. You can buy the dog for 50 to 70 grand. And why is it so expensive? Because it's not mass produced and because it's so complicated. You know, when the first Segway came out, it was very complicated. Not the Segway, the hoverboard. When the first hoverboard came out, it was very complicated. It had gyros and all this tech in it. And China immediately made knockoffs that were vastly cheaper. And the company who invented the hoverboard was like, oh, tear it apart. Let's see what tech they stole. And they found they didn't use the same tech. They used completely different tech. They used mercury switches instead of gyros. And it worked. So that's not it. There are cheaper ways to do things quite well. Yeah, crash testing. And the AI. Well, but Boston Dynamics robot can dance. Yeah, in heavily edited. Look, these guys are not even impressed. You know why? Because this is probably take 26. They're just walking around like it's a normal day because this has been going on all day. Probably all week. Now, I'm not saying this is not impressive. It's impressive. But this is not AI. These robots did not select their choreography. If you said, dance for me in the style of blank, and it creates a whole new dance for you, that's AI, my friend. This is just puppetry. Very good puppetry, but it's puppetry. And again, heavily, heavily edited. So what's the difference? You see, the big mistake is thinking that this was something other, and this is
rendering of the but's
we get to see behind the curtain. We get to see what it sees. We get to see how it operates in space. We get to see how it selects its paths, how it learns to walk. We get to see all that. We get a look behind the curtain. No one else is showing a look behind the curtain because they can't. Because if they did, it would not be impressive. Or maybe they're afraid it would give away too much. But here's the navigation. Here is it populating its space, its path. This is different. This is very different. Because this was not, and again, it was so dense. Because the maze is not for you. You and I can watch this and be impressed by bits and pieces, but I don't think we can understand it. Because it's not for us. It's for people who work in this field, who understand what all this is, who see it and say, yeah, I want to be part of that. It is a recruiting event. That's why there was no press there. Did you notice there was no press? And I can tell you how you can double check me on this. Go look at all the stories. You won't see photographs in person. You will see screen captures and old stock photos. Yeah, they weren't invited because it's not about you. And if you look at the question and answers at the end, those were quality questions. Those were almost entirely engineers asking really good questions. Now, there was a couple in there that were a little silly, but it's to be expected. And that doesn't mean they weren't necessarily engineers, just that they had different objectives. So it was quality. Well, and then you get to the silly Reddit comments and they're like, well, you don't think they already have all the engineers that they want and need? That's right. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that no matter how good your engineering team is, it could be better. There are people who could participate in your project who are not yet on board. Maybe they're working on something they really love, but haven't yet had the opportunity to see what you're doing. Maybe they're working on something and it's stalled. This event could have... Oh, yeah, I am flickering a little, huh? Well, I apologize for that. I'll reboot later. It could be any number of things. It could be any number of things. So, yeah. You think... And you think this demonstration convinced them to join? Absolutely. 100% yes. If you saw the demonstration, you did. And by the way, I'd say that the competition's on notice just with the lanes technology. I'm going to switch to the smaller screen because that flickering is too much. If you looked at just how they implemented the measuring of lanes, it is astounding. I'm going to close some screens here, see if that'll help. Nah. Maybe I've got too much stuff open? I don't know. It is astounding. It is astounding what they were able to do in a year. How they were able to take a system that worked pretty good and make it that much better. So I don't know. Yeah, I think absolutely this would work as a recruiting event. So let's get into the sillier ones. It's a pump and dump. Guys, listen, critics, you need to stop saying that. AI Day 1 didn't move the stock. Battery Day didn't move the stock. Autonomy Day didn't move the stock. None of these days move the stock. And if you think Wall Street's going to be impressed by a product that will maybe come out in 3 to 5 years, you don't understand Wall Street. And I will tell you, the people saying these things don't understand Wall Street. They're bitter because they missed the boat, because they invested in meme stocks and lost their butts, while seemingly unaware that while they did miss the boat, there's another boat already loading up right now. You can get on that one. And the boat after that, well, that one might even just be loaded by bots itself. It's not too late to get on board. Well, are you just going to throw money at something like this just because? Not just because it has a good probability of success and it costs billions with a potential net return of trillions. That's a good gamble, my friend. It's a pump and dump. No, it's not. Well, Elon always lies. You know, where's my Cybertruck? Where's my Semi? Where's my Roadster? Where's my FSD? Well, they're delayed. Elon makes the impossible possible eventually. But let's talk about the things that the bold, impossible claims he made that came true. Reusable rockets. Well, those have been on the drawing board forever, right? But no one found a way to do it in a way that was economically feasible. And it's made them the biggest launch provider in the world. Not just the biggest launch provider, but in 2022, they've launched more than every other company and country combined times 2. That's a lot of payload to orbit. Starlink, that's impossible. Do you realize there's only like 2,000 satellites in orbit? You'd need another 2,000 just to make it work. Yeah, and now they have 3,500. They own most of the satellites in orbit, at least the operational ones. Vegas Loop, you can't build that. Not at that price. You can't do it. It will not. You know what? We had a shutdown, and they still finished on time and on budget. Tell me how you do that. Well, great, but those aren't Tesla. Okay, well, you can't start a new car company, but he got to scale production with Tesla. It was the first company to do so in the US in 70 years. The Model Y came out ahead of schedule. The cars always beat on their specs. Giga Shanghai, you will never get that built. Well, it opened early. It was built and operational in a year. Well, we're going to have the largest battery factory in North America. We're going to make 20 gigawatt hours a year. Or gigawatts a year. They overshot the mark. They over-delivered on that impossible, doubtable ambition. The Southern Australia battery, the Megapack, we will build it in 100 days or it's free. Well, guess they're getting a battery for free? No, they had it turned on at, I think, day 92 or 3 or something. Well in advance of day 100. And it has proved hugely profitable for the power agency, and they've expanded it since then because it works. Well, anyone can build a car factory. Can they? Can they? Because Volkswagen has admitted the struggles they're having compared to the efficiency of Tesla. So it's easy to focus on the missed targets and ignore the ones that were blown out of the water. Well, he's a jerk. Yeah, I'll allow that. I would agree. I would agree that he is a jerk. Yeah, I absolutely. But I don't base my investment thesis on the personality of the CEO. Because if I did, I wouldn't invest in any company ever. Because they're all jerks. Everyone's a jerk. Good people can do bad things and bad people can do good things. I'm sure all these people on Reddit who comment all these horrible things are, in some ways, probably good people. They're just grossly misguided, and they've got a bitterness inside them that's eating them alive. Don't be that person, man. And then, of course, you get to the comments, which you always get to, on anything on Reddit having to do with Elon. When you correct them, how's his taste? Are we in middle school? Are you making a homophobic slur based on a robot presentation? Because even in middle school, and I went to middle school in, what would that be, the 90s, I guess? Early 90s, late 80s. That joke even then didn't land. And by the way, for the curious, that's a very popular thing to do. Most people enjoy some aspect of that particular activity. I mean. So, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just... So the summary is, Matt McFarland is a cynical, modestly dishonest opportunist who knows he can get clicks by trash-talking Tesla. And the people who are most passionate about this being the dumbest thing they've ever seen didn't watch it and don't get it. And I'm confident that if they watched the video, they wouldn't understand it more than you or I did, which is to say they'd get a 20%, 30% understanding, but they would understand what the event was actually about. I just had to get that off my chest, man. Wow. Let's see if there's any comments we needs to get to. How are we doing? How is everybody? By the way, of course, as always, a quick and massive thank you to my Patreons who get early access, bonus content, look behind the curtain, all that good stuff. Let's see if we got anything here. Yes, apologies for the flashing in the corner. It wasn't doing that in my pre-show check. I thought I was blinking. If they believe it was a pump and dump, they can certainly sell short on Monday. They would have, if they believed that, they would have done it on Friday. But if the stock moves on Monday, it will be because of a surprise to production and deliveries to the upside. I think deliveries will miss because there's so many in transit. And I think production is likely to beat Wall Street estimates, but I haven't seen what the consensus is. Landing like rockets like that was first demonstrated by Flash Gordon circa 1960. There was also a movie from Russia from the 50s, 57 I want to say. But do it profitably. On the plus side, all those investment experts who didn't understand a single significant portion of the whole presentation will continue rating Tesla low as a car company. It's interesting to see how many of the core competencies can be carried over. Batteries, the chips, the manufacturing process, the scalability. This is being designed from today to be mass producible, and that's going to make it cheap. You put it on an assembly line, and it gets cheap. Gives us the opportunity to keep buying low. Matt McFarland, never heard that name. I hadn't either, but apparently he's a contributor at CNN Business. A lot of tech in that presentation. I doubt many people get it right. But the people who didn't watch it got 0% of it. I'm going to buy another share or two first thing Monday. Yeah. The fact that they don't watch it but commented on it all day says much to me. It's not about the bot. It's not about the presentation. It's not about the technology. It's about I hate billionaires. I hate Elon. It's about I am a victim of the FUD spread professionally by all the other companies in the Fortune 500 who will profit from taking Elon down a peg, and I am too stupid to realize it. Yeah. I'm amazed they could make it walk at all in such a short time. Yeah. I didn't expect to see a working demo, even that one. And yeah, it doesn't walk great, but it doesn't have to. That's not the hard part. The hard part is making it do things that it's never done before. And we got a glimpse at that. we can see a little bit behind the curtain. And the fact that they're showing us behind the curtain when it's still so rough is how you know this presentation isn't for investors necessarily. It isn't for the press. It's for recruiting. Well, this bot is, as it is today, it'll never work. That's right. That's why they're recruiting. That's the whole point, my friend. So, I'm going to wrap it up right there. What did I miss? What did I misunderstand? Leave me all your thoughts in them comments below. Yeah. And I've been calling you guys clever robots for years. And now you know I actually mean it. Hopefully you'll still be more clever for a while still. But we shall see. So stay tuned, stay juicy. And I can't wait to hear from you, clever robots, in the not too distant but very